All right, so now we're going to look at step 3 of our hypothesis testing procedure. Compute the observed value of the test statistic and compare it to what the null hypothesis said you would get. Find the p-value in order to measure your level of surprise. So in this case, we're going to be asked for two different things. We're going to be asked for our test statistic, and we're going to be looking for a p-value. So let's start by looking for our test statistic. All right, our test statistic in this case is going to be a 1 proportion z test statistic. All right. A test statistic compares the real world with our null hypothesis world. The test statistic compares our observed outcome with the outcome we would get if the null hypothesis is true. If the null hypothesis is true, the z statistic will be close to 0. When our test statistic or our z statistic is far away from the value that we would expect, we reject the null hypothesis and conclude the evidence supports the alternative hypothesis. The further our z statistic is away from 0, the more the null hypothesis is discredited. So looking at what we have here, we have a formula for our z statistic. This is not a formula that you need to memorize. You should either have it handy on a note card or it'll be given to you if you need it on the test. So the test statistic has the structure z equals observed value minus null value over our standard error. This is very similar to our z formula that we've seen before, where we had our observed value minus our mean divided by our standard deviation. The difference is here we are looking at proportions instead. So when we're looking at this formula for our z statistic, our observed value is going to be our p hat value. Our p naught value is our null value. And then our standard error, again, is similar to a standard error formula that we've seen in the previous chapter, and we're just going to have to go through and calculate this all together. So we're going to start by looking at an example that goes through and talks a little bit more about this test statistic.